On this week's edition of the Fast Performance Baseball Podcast, Connor and I pseudo-debate, who would we rather start in Game 7 of the World Series? Greg Maddux or Randy Johnson? Two very excellent pitchers. Who would we rather start? And then our main topic today is, do your training habits match your training goals? Are you maximizing your training to align with your goals? And are you doing everything you can to achieve the goals you laid out for the offseason? All that and more on the Fast Performance Baseball Podcast. Welcome back to the Fast Performance Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Cole Thomas, with my co-host,
Connor Reynolds.
Connor, I have a hypothetical for you.
What's up?
So we're in the midst of the baseball playoffs. We just wrapped up Game 1 of the ALCS, watching that between the Yankees and the Astros. So intrigued me, who would you rather start if you're the manager for whatever team in the modern era? Game 7 of the World Series. Who are you starting? Greg Maddux or Randy Johnson?
Ooh. That's tough. You said modern era, so we're
playing in the modern era, yes.
Okay, so today's hitters. I'm gonna have to go Randy Johnson.
Randy Johnson? Why?
And I mean, you said starter, right?
Yes. Your Game 7 starter.
Yeah.
Everything's out on the line. And I could put the caveat on it. He doesn't necessarily have to be like, it's kind of like you feel like in Game 7, in your Game 7s in most recent times, it's become like a bullpen day. Like you have your starter and you're going to ride him as long as he's successful. But like the first opportunity, if we can get to the bullpen, we're going to go do it.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to go Johnson. With it being a starter, I feel like with today's hitters, Maddux, like I get he has spin, I get he has movement, I get he can hit his spots, but hitting your spots at 90 versus being able to let the ball run at triple digits, that's different. I just don't see Maddux. I mean, if he's living anywhere between 88 and 92 with his fastball, I don't see where as a starter he would be able to go more than like 3 innings. Now, if you brought him in as the closer and you had someone like Randy throwing or someone throwing hard to start, and then you go to Maddux, I feel like that change of pace is going to be a lot more beneficial for Maddux. But him as a starter, I just feel like today's hitters would be able to take advantage of, even if you're looking at, if you just cut how many pitches he has in half, you're still able to compete at a high level, even though it does have movement, even though he does have control. It's just not fast enough. I think the guys would be able to react well to the movement.
So I'll for reference, I will agree that I think Randy Johnson would be my starter as well. But to play devil's advocate, Johnson's kind of a two-trick pony. He is a fastball and he was a slider guy. Right, from the left side, don't get me wrong, super long.
From first base,
right? So he's already throwing from a very awkward angle and throwing heat from a very awkward angle. But if you're a Maddux, you have 4 different pitches. You have your sinker, which is your bread and butter pitch. You have a changeup. You have a slider or cutter, right? And a 2-seam and a 4-seam fastball that you can kind of throw whenever you want. You generate all sorts of movement with your pitches, and they're all different sorts of pitches, right? Your his changeup goes one way, his changeup drops, his cutter stays pretty neutral on the plane, right? His fastball runs, his 2-seam runs even more than his fastball does, right? And he rarely threw a curveball or a slider, but he had those in his arsenal, right? That he could throw for a strike. So you have a curveball that goes down and a slider that goes.
He tunneled well.
He tunneled very well, right? And they all move different directions. But from a hitting perspective, how would that mess with you? Like, regardless of the velocity, if you could throw 4 or 5 different pitches from the same arm slot and they all move different ways, if he's got 4 to 5 pitches, whereas I would say like in the modern era, it's I'm looking for 1 pitch and I'm trying to take it deep. But if the pitcher's like in Johnson's case, he's the fastball and he's the slider, right? So 50% of the time you'll be right, 50% of the time you won't be right.
Yeah.
Theoretically, right? But if you're thinking like, okay, he's got to throw me a two seam here, but then he throws you a cutter or he throws you a slider, right? Or he's going to throw me the cutter here, but then he drops the one rare curveball he throws maybe that game, or the changeup, right? How does that affect you from a hitting perspective? Not you have 4 or 5 different pitches to try to contend with and try to do damage on, as opposed to, all right, if I see my one fastball, I'm just taking it deep, and if I get a slider, all right, I'll just move on to the next pitch.
Yeah, 100%. I would say that the faster you throw, the more spin you're going to have, and so
correct.
For when you're going through, if Maddux was able to be like a mid 90s guy with his movement, I think it would help out a lot more. But when you're looking at it, even if you do guess fastball with Randy, you still have to try and hit 100. Like, even if you guess right on the slider, you still have to try and hit like a 90-mile-an-hour slider that breaks from like California to like Florida. Like, the thing is nasty.
Right.
Whereas with Maddux, I still feel like the reaction is going to be a lot easier. Even if you do say like, all right, I'm going to, I mean, guys hit Mariano Rivera and he was fastball, or he was a two-seam cutter guy. And in his prime, he was upper nines, and guys were still able to semi-hit him. Obviously not well.
Right. But like you can still time him up. But if there's that movement difference, there becomes the difference. It's that missing that ball by however many centimeters that turns that ball into a hard line drive into the gap versus a rollover to second base.
Right. I just
like, regardless if you time them up correctly, right?
And I would say that the same thing is with Johnson, though. Like, even if you time up the fastball, you still have to hit the fastball, because his fastball wasn't just flat and straight.
No.
And so same thing with the slider. Like, I would say that with Maddux, with the drop in velo compared to Randy, it would be a lot easier to sit like a hard and soft split. And again, I get it. Like, I've seen Maddux pitch. It's not like I'm just blindly saying this. And I'm also not saying that it's a for sure 100% that Johnson's going to get a win and Maddux is going to lose. It's that, like, versus today's hitters, I think Johnson would give a better chance. And again, I gave the caveat that I think Maddux would do a good job for like 2-3 innings. I think once he got beyond that, then that's when it's going to start to be an issue. Because, I mean, even if all 4 pitches are on that day, that's going to be tough. That's going to be really tough. But if you're sitting, a two-seam or a cutter, or if you're sitting something hard and you get something hard, you don't have to make as much of a guess or an adjustment to it, I guess, because the pitch is slower, and so you're able to see it for a little bit longer, rather than with Johnson. I mean, dude's throwing from first base, and it is hard, it is firm. And I mean, I'm not going to, like, I think Johnson probably tunneled pretty well. Now, again, it was only a 2-pitch tunnel where, I mean, he also had more pitch. I would be interested in what his mix was. I would really be interested in if there's anything on Savant or Reference or anything that has like his splits on what he threw. Because, I mean, obviously with that same idea, I don't think it's fair to say Johnson was only a 2-pitch, but then give Maddux a 2-seam, a 4-seam, a cutter, a sinker, and a curveball. Like, I mean, assuming if all 5 of those are on, that's going to be tough. But I feel like that's going to be just as tough as Johnson's 1 or 2, possibly 3 pitches that are on as well. The velo just changes so much. I mean, we see pitchers today that will throw triple digits and they won't even be close to hitting their spots, but just because it's throwing, it's moving, and it's hard, like that difference of velo too, the 100 to the 90 slider, that's nasty. That is very difficult. I would hope. I don't know exactly Maddux's numbers on his changeup, but that dude's going to have to be throwing like a heavy difference from his fastball to his off speed, and then relying on the movement of the fastballs, whether it's a cutter or a 2-seam. You're going to really have to rely on the movement of your hard pitches, and then you're really going to have to hope and pray that your off speed is really set off. We were talking on camera a little bit about how
off camera,
we were talking off camera, saying that it's easier to pitch when you're either able to throw above the hitter's threshold, or if you're below the hitter's threshold. It's
below hitting speed or above hitting speed.
If you're in the middle of that hitting speed, like, you're gonna get. And the other thing is too is that since Maddux walked so many less guys than he did strikeouts, I would also say if you went back and looked at a lot of his strikeouts, I mean those pitches are like a foot off the plate, and I would say Maddux, I think, was throwing against like semi plumbers, where at least Randy was seeing guys more in the 2000s.
They played in the exact same era.
I mean, Maddux. When did Johnson break out?
So Maddux is oh, you're gonna get so fucked over on that one. So Maddox's MLB debut was 1986.
Okay,
and he retired in 2008.
Okay, but 86, and when was Johnson's? Like, I mean, we're not looking at a Tom Brady right now.
No, Johnson MLB debut was 1988, and he retired in 2009. They played in the exact same era.
Oh, I'm hella fucked up.
Well, there goes your argument.
All right. I mean, still.
They face the exact same hitters.
All right. Well, here, let me change it. Both facing plumbers until like the mid 90s. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still riding Johnson. Now, again, if it was a closer role where I could control who if it could be like Randy as a starter, Maddux coming in after that, I think that'd be money. If it was you start an opener, if Maddux was the opener, not at the start, but the opener, and then Randy came in after that, right. I think that'd be very effective. It's just Maddux going more than 3 innings with today's hitters, I think would be very difficult for him.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. So it's okay, so here's according to Wikipedia, so not the greatest source of information, but it'll do for this argument. Is in the prime of his career, Randy Johnson's fastball clocked as high as 102 miles an hour, with a low 3/4 delivery, nearly sidearm. His signature pitch was a slider that broke down and away from left-handed hitters and down and into right-handed hitters. Obviously,
oh wow.
The effectiveness of the pitch was marked by its velocity being in the low 90s, so literally just like a Jacob deGrom type pitcher, right?
Yep.
With tight late break. Hitters often believe that they were throwing a fastball until the ball broke just before crossing home plate. Right-handed hitters have swung through and missed sliders that nearly hit their back foot.
Yep.
Later, Johnson dubbed his slider Mr. Snappy, for those interested in nicknaming your pitches.
Hey, baby.
In his later years, Johnson's fastball declined to 96. Not much of a decline there, if you ask me.
Dang, don't you hate it?
And his slider clocked at around 87 miles an hour.
So
Johnson also threw a split finger fastball that behaved like a changeup and a sinker to induce ground balls. On June 27th, 2012, on an appearance on the Dan Patrick Show, Adam Dunn, a left-handed batter, was asked who was the best pitcher he faced, and he said, quote, "Honestly, Randy Johnson was good. It's hopeless. It's like a hopeless feeling. The first time you face him, you feel like he's just going to hit you right in the back of the neck. And when he throws it, and like every pitch is going to hit you in the back of the net, and then back of the neck. I don't know why I'm saying neck. And it ends up down and away for a strike, and you just have to trust it's going to be a strike. And heaven forbid he doesn't lose one there, and heaven forbid it goes to your cheek."
Didn't that happen in an All-Star game?
I knew he threw behind John Kruk one time in an All-Star game and scared the living shit out of him.
Yeah. Like that is. And again, like,
so then, and on the Greg Maddux, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
But the Greg Maddux Wikipedia in the same pitching style segment is Maddux relied on his command, composure, and guile to outwit hitters. Though his fastball touched 93 in his early years, his velocity steadily declined throughout his career, as is natural. And it was never a principal focus as a pitcher. By the end of his career, his fastball averaged less than 86 miles an hour. Maddux was also, so if you're talking about prime Maddux, he's still 90 to 93 with movement.
Yeah, that's a changeup. That's like his fastball, like his
but you're I feel like you're comparing him to the upper echelon of guys like your Verlanders or your Scherzer, right? But
Game 7,
if you're throwing 93 with movement, right? That's still gonna. If you have elite movement at 93, you're still going to be a wildly effective pitcher that could win you a game in a Game 7 of a World Series.
I think he could. It's just 90 to 93. Like I'm trying to look up right now what Randy Johnson's split was on his pitches, because like I mean, 90 to 93, that is Randy Johnson's, like, that's a slider.
Yeah.
With elite movement.
Right.
So, like, Randy's able to throw his off speed.
Right, but if you're able to
equal,
throw 90 to 93 on your fastball, and then you have three to four other pitches that you can throw behind it that all move differently.
Yeah. But that I mean, again, we're picking hairs right here. We've both said that,
but that's the whole point of this. That's the whole point of this segment.
We both said that we wouldn't mind either of the pitchers to start. Like, I don't know. I just that if Randy would be able to go his fastball, slider, and mix in his changeup,
his split finger fastball, yes,
with like that's elite. Like,
it is.
That's elite.
But Maddux also on that lines has elite stuff based on the movement profiles.
Movement doesn't matter. Like, again, I think his movement is like a modern day changeup today.
Okay.
Like,
how many modern day changeups are very, very good? That get a lot of outs.
A lot.
Sure.
And so, but like, if that's his max, if that's the most that he can produce,
but okay, so I recall this as a high school hitter, and I mean, to me, pitching didn't really matter when I was a hitter. Like, if you threw hard or you threw soft, it's just like you're a pitcher to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always remembered kids being more like, okay, I could hit the kid with velocity. I can't hit the guy who has a shit ton of movement, right? It's way tougher. It's way tougher to hit movement if it's on, right, as opposed to velocity, right? And I would say this, like, from a general standpoint, is always for kids listening here, this is not like an excuse to like get really good and be a Greg Maddux type. Gain some velocity, because your margin for error is a lot greater than the guys who are that don't throw nearly as hard but may have stuff. But we're implying that we're going to assume both Greg Maddux and both Randy Johnson have their A+ stuff for this game.
100%. And again, like, I mean, we're not saying that Greg Maddux is a bad pitcher at all. It's, I don't know. Me personally, I don't. If it had
I'm interested
to be
I'm interested about your argument that movement doesn't matter.
No, I'm not saying movement doesn't matter. I'm saying when your best thing, like the thing that you hang your hat on, like, this is my thing.
Okay.
That is the average. Like, I would say that is average for an elite pitcher right now.
But we're also implying that he sets everybody up with his fastball, which is a low 90s fastball, right? Mm-hmm. But then you have a slider, you have a curveball, you have a cutter, you have a circle change, a sinker, whatever it might be, whatever everything was classified as. You have all those four pitches that line up in the same tunnel, that one goes this way, one goes left, one goes right, one goes down to the left, one goes down to the right.
You just got to be right once.
Yeah, but I mean, the same thing would be, you time up one fastball on Randy Johnson, you hit a bomb, right? It's the same. Like, remember, it's the same thing in the 2018, 2019, or it was a 2019 ALCS. Is Jose Altuve? I'm sitting one pitch, and he hits a bomb off of Aroldis Chapman, who's still one of the hardest throwers in the game when he's on the roster. But it's like all it takes is this. I mean, but the argument stands on both sides. It just takes one pitch.
Yeah.
Right.
But
like one
percentage of, I think, me timing up 100-mile-an-hour fastball versus a 90-mile-an-hour slider, and then also guessing the correct location, I feel like that's going to be a lot harder than to guess. Because, like, the guesswork, the timing piece is so much easier when it's slower. And I know 90 to 93, I'm saying, is slower. Like, it's so much easier as a hitter if I'm not worried about getting my doors blown off, then the off speed's just not there as much. Like, it's just when your pitch profile matches up to, like I said, other pitchers' off speed, that is, in my opinion, very difficult. Because, like, Maddux could not. He would have to be pinpoint accurate on literally every single pitch for however many innings you're looking for him to go. Every single pitch, because the moment that he doesn't, his two seam doesn't move, I don't know how many inches is on an average two seam, but like if it doesn't move as much as it needs to, it's out. Whereas Randy's, like he can hit, like you said earlier, he can have a lot more mistakes without having the issue. And when we're reading that Wikipedia thing, like it's not that Randy's slider is like they tunneled the same. And I mean, I don't know. I've hit MLB The Show, Randy Johnson on Legend. And that shit is impossible, impossible. And it's just because he throws it so hard.
When did you face Maddux on the elite Maddux? Have you ever faced the elite Maddux?
No, like I said, he's just like every other pitcher. Like I've seen Jacob deGrom's changeup. I've seen I've seen that shit. And if you go back and look at a lot of the strike three calls that Maddux was getting, that shit was like in other batters' boxes. Like in today's era, Twitter would not even allow that. I don't think the umpire would be able to even make it to their car before they just got like brutalized. Whether it's verbal or anything else, we're going to lean more towards the verbal side. But it's just that velo, man. Like that is something different. And now I would say that I think Randy is a better pitcher than Aroldis.
Well, of course, I wouldn't disagree with you there, but
and so like, yes, Altuve was sitting on one pitch and he got it. That's awesome. I just don't see like. I mean, obviously, it can happen for both of them, but I don't know. I think Randy is my pick.
I think. I mean, I would rather Randy just because it helps my argument as being like work on your velocity before you work on anything else. But we're also dealing with two guys who are outliers. So it feels like no matter what, they're both going to be very effective in winning you a game, right? Because if we'd say like our closest Randy Johnson velocity comparison is probably DeGrom, right? Mm-hmm. Right around there. So according to Savant, with DeGrom's fastball velocity, and obviously we can't go and look at Randy Johnson's or Greg Maddux because they're not on Savant because they never played in the. I think Johnson maybe played 1 year in the StatCast era, so there's just no information on that, right? But so we would say maybe DeGrom's our best velocity base, and I'm sure there are other people we can look at as well. Mm-hmm. But like DeGrom is in the 99th percentile in fastball velocity, right? So you're an outlier in that case, right? I would say our more modern version of Maddux would be like a Kyle Hendricks, right?
Yeah.
Where Hendricks is in the first percentile of, but that's what we were saying. Like we were talking about on the off-camera thing is it's better to be, you want to be either above hitting speed or below hitting speed, right? So it's kind of like at the end of the day, they're both outliers. They're both probably going to get you the win no matter what. It's just, if push comes to shove, gun to your head, who are you going to go with? I mean, you can make the argument for both. Don't get me wrong. 100%. Absolutely. And I feel
I think we've both done that a little bit.
Exactly. And no matter what is like, if I'm the manager and I mean, it's a really good problem to have, right? If I have Johnson or I have Maddux, I'm like, yeah, exactly. It's just basically the flip of a coin.
Maddux.
Right. Exactly. It's the flip of a coin. But it's just these are just fun hypotheticals that we could get into.
Now, really quick, I also went on brooksbaseball.net.
Yeah.
Pitch repertoire at glance. In 2009, compared to other left-handed pitchers, Randy Johnson's four-seam fastball has heavy sink action.
Yeah.
Has essentially average velo and has slight armside run. His slider results in many more ground balls compared to other pitcher sliders, and has a primary 12-6 movement.
Yeah, so he's basically throwing a dropping slider.
Like, whoa. Whoa. And he also has a sinker.
Greg Maddux basically throws a Brad Lidge slider. Brad Lidge's slider was the exact where he was just here and then just died.
No, that was Randy.
Oh, that's Randy? Oh, yeah. My bad.
That's insane. And this says that in 2009, Randy's fastball was 91, slider at 85, and sinker at 87. So if we're going through like that sinker, if we're trying to stay convenient, I mean, he has a mid-90s sinker. I don't even know if he was throwing it.
It depends on how often he throws it, right?
Yeah, but I
one time had that on a TikTok where I did I took the spinball wizard and I did DeGrom's Arsenal and all that.
Yeah.
Fastball, slider, and threw the changeup. And this one kick, I was like, he doesn't throw a changeup. I'm like, he throws one 5% of the time, so he might as well include it.
Well, and it's one of those where it's like, as a hitter, you don't, and when I've talked to catchers about, pitch calling and stuff like that, like just knowing the pitcher has blank, 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 and blank options to throw, even if they don't throw it often, just knowing that they have the capability, that's in the back of the head.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that is in there. Jacob deGrom's fastball or changeup, you said he throws it 5% of the time. There are hitters that go up there and are still like, it might be the changeup.
Yeah, exactly.
And he doesn't throw it often.
This is a changeup count.
But that is just having that.
This season. Okay. Oh, this is very fascinating. Is this his entire career? Okay.
I feel like he would throw it a lot more, but
So this season in 2022, he threw his. No, that's not it. I love Savant, but I hate sometimes where the things I want to see are like way down the line. So I'm like, God, I got to do all this scrolling.
I'll close scrolling real quick. I just want to let anybody know that's listening. We are going to be doing a Hit Tracks Halloween tournament here at Fast Performance here in Denver, Colorado.
Sick plug.
You guys can sign up at fastcolorado.com. Going to be going through. It's going to be teams of 3 inning games.
No.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have prizes for best costume, highest exit velocity for the distance. And then the winners are going to get free bids into a Hit Tracks League that we're going to be running for the next 6 weeks following the Halloween tournament. So if anyone's interested out there and looking to try and get, I don't know, close to 50 live at bats within an hour, with also getting Hit Tracks data. And then if you have a Blast Motion account, we can get that on 3 different camera angles, all recorded for college recruiting or any other reasons you might want that information. Yeah, we can do that.
Cool.
$50.
So this season, Jacob deGrom threw his fastball, his 4-seam fastball, 47% of the time. Threw his slider 39% of the time. Changeup 88.2% of the time. And he threw a curveball in there 5.1% of the time. So shut up, kid on TikTok who told me that Jacob doesn't throw a changeup. He obviously does.
He does.
He doesn't throw. He throws it just below 10% of the time. But if that's in the back of your head, that like this might be the one. This might be the one time out of 10. I get it.
And again, like the split on that, because I mean, in his sole postseason start in the wild card, his first 3 pitches, if I recall, were all over 100, and I think 2 of them were 101 or 102. Yeah. To then have a changeup that, I mean, do you have your changeup speed?
I mean, his average fastball velocity this year was 80 or 98.9, and his changeup is 92, and his slider is 92, and his curveball was 83.
His changeup is Greg Maddux's best fastball.
All right, well, we should wrap this up. So let us know down in the comments who you would start in a Game 7 of a World Series. Randy Johnson, Greg Maddux. Write down in the comments down below for us. Jeez, we went... Moving on to our main topic of this week's episode, we wanted to talk about, are your training habits conducive to the goals you laid out for this offseason? So I kind of bring this up in the fact that I feel that we get athletes in here who have kind of grandiose goals. Like, I want to add 5 to 10 miles an hour on my fastball. I want to add this pitch. I want to add that pitch. I want to change my mechanics so my arm doesn't hurt or whatever it might be. But our training sessions maybe are limited to 1, maybe 2 times a week. And so I kind of get into a lane where I'm like, I'm just annoyed by it. Or I'm like, okay, well, your training habits are not conducive to the goals you laid out. Right. So it's like, it's one of those things where you just kind of need to buck up.
It's wanting filet mignon on a top ramen budget.
Exactly. So my crux of this idea, and hopefully he listens to this, but this is it's a kid I had actually this morning as we were recording this on October 19th of 2022, where he came in today. It's a Wednesday, but he didn't come in on Monday. So today was a plyo care velo day for him because we're now in a velo stage with him. He wants to add 5 to 10 miles an hour to his fastball. That's one of his major goals because it will put him over the top and make the varsity team at his high school or whatever team he wants to play in college if that's one of his goals. But he didn't come in on Monday, so we only did 1 velo session for this week. Right? And I asked him, I'm like, where were you on Monday? He goes, and he tells me, well, we had the day off from school, so I just decided to just take the day off. Okay. I just decided to take the day off from life. Yeah. And so I asked him, like, why didn't you come? And he's like, yeah, think about it now, I probably should.
Yeah.
Which is funny because he's on a package that allows him to come in twice a week. So it's just like, okay, well, you didn't have school, so why weren't you here?
Yeah.
Right. So and then he's had some issues with schoolwork and like not getting his homework done, and I'm like, then what are you doing on the weekends? Like, I don't think he has a job. Like, could be wrong on that, but I'm not 100%. But like, if he doesn't have a job, like, why aren't you doing your homework? Why aren't you, getting these things out of the way that allow you to be more conducive to your training schedule for your training goals?
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, all right, you need to start taking this goes back to our priorities list. This goes back to our pet peeves podcast from last week, which is like guys who just don't take care of the things they need to outside of the facility, and then it ends up screwing them on the main end where they don't come in, they don't get the training they need to get done. And then they look in when March 1 rolls around and they're looking like, well, why am I not any better? Why am I the same player I was last year? And I feel like there are not enough kids who have the self-awareness to say that that was a me problem. It was the facility I went to. It was their problem.
Yep. And it's one of those where, like you said, we've talked about it, and it doesn't alter or change our careers as instructors.
No.
It is solely your career. It is solely you playing, like you said, in the spring. It is solely if you want to go play college baseball. Like we're not going to get fired from this place because you didn't show up on a Monday and then in the spring you didn't make your varsity team. Like, we're not going to get fired from what we do because we had nothing to do with that. You know what I'm saying?
We get enough guys who achieve their goals that our rate of return is pretty good.
100%. And so it's one of those where the mirror is one of my favorite things to talk about. And I don't think I've said it too much as of lately, but the big thing is that I like to try and hold a mirror up to an athlete's face. And if the athlete doesn't like the reflection looking back at them, a lot of the time high school kids will blame me for holding the mirror versus them controlling how they look.
Which is such a weird, like, I don't know how you can come to that rationale, but I understand it happens all the time.
Oh, yeah.
We get guys who are like, oh, you didn't do the work to get me to where I want to be. It's like, no, you didn't do the work. Like, I'm the one that just lays out the programming and guides you down the yellow brick road to the success you want to achieve. You're the one that has to walk the actual road.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's just like that interesting dichotomy between parents and players and understanding what the roles are. It's like, if I could jump into your body and get you where you need to be, I would do that.
We're there, dog.
But unfortunately, that kind of magic does not exist in this world.
No, and it's one of those where I don't know what has made it to allow for this to happen. Cole and I literally walked into the podcast, or essentially into the facility this morning, not really knowing what we're going to talk about too much. Like, I mean, we know the model or kind of flow of it, but we don't necessarily know like the hard like topic of the main topic and stuff. And then, like you said, this morning you run into that, and literally as we were about to start recording, I received a text message from a former player that I used to work with. This player played on an organization that I've worked with, and during the summer with this organization, we would have hitting days where we would hit 2 times a week in the morning for I think it was an hour and a half. And so this athlete decided that they did not want to attend a single one of those sessions. Mm-hmm. This athlete has also been reached out to other players that I work with and inviting them to come do training sessions or to come do this or to come do that. This athlete has elected to decline all of those opportunities. The text message I received today is that the athlete did not make the same organization again, and so they are looking to me to find out if there are any other tryouts that I can push them towards to help them play on a team next summer. And for me, it puts me as the instructor in a kind of bind a little bit, because it's like, all right, I have an athlete that has not really shown me that they really want to get better. This athlete has pretty much stayed the same for a while, and yet asking me for a favor, yet they haven't done anything to put them in a position to where I like want to stick my neck out for. Like there are a lots of athletes that I've worked with where I will try and move mountains. I will do whatever I humanly can to help you out. And it's one of those where I'm not going to stick my neck out if I don't think you're actually going to do the work. Like I'm not going to suggest you to a team or organization and like what am I supposed to say? Like
Right.
I've also had it where I had an athlete quit one of my teams a year ago, and at the end of the season, the family came up and they were like, "Oh, like we hope that this doesn't change anything, blah blah blah." And I was like, like it doesn't change our personal relationship, but I let them know I was like, if a college reaches out to me and asks me about your player, I have to be honest.
Right.
I cannot lie to them. I'm gonna have to tell them like this kid quit in the middle of the season. Like now, I'm saying not saying that this kid's a bad kid, but like I need this coach to know that if you are coming to me for my reference, I have to be honest with him.
Yeah.
Same thing with this kid. Like I'm not going to go to another organization and lie to get you into a tryout and then have you do the same thing you've been doing for the last 2 years. And now you've ruined my reputation where the next time I try and send a kid to a tryout with this coach, they're going to look at me and like, are you crazy? Like the last kid you brought us didn't like wasn't there.
I don't like saying it because I think it sounds harsh, but like for lack of a better way to describe it, it's like my reputation is more important to me than your desire to play when you haven't shown you have a desire or you
100%.
haven't shown.
I don't think that's harsh.
Yeah,
I think that's reality.
It's not harsh, but it sounds harsh. Where it's like it's one of those like we're our sole idea or our sole objective is to make you the best player you can be, so you can go play at the highest level you can possibly play.
And listen to that order again. The best player to then allow you to play on the best team. We're not going to put you on the best team and hope you become a really good player.
Right. Yeah. It's like, so and I'm, we've gone this in full context as you're far more into the travel ball, into the, running teams. Whereas like the only teams I've ever run are the high school team I coach at. And we've done some summer ball stuff at a previous school, but we were obligated to do that because it's when I was at Denver East, we had the RBI program, which I love the RBI program. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a very good organization. And then I think the goal is very much needed. Exactly. But, for Denver East kids, like RBI is not that important because it's the wealthiest, Northfield's probably going to overtake it here pretty soon. But like Denver East is the crown jewel of the Denver public school system because it's been there the longest. It's the best looking school aesthetically. Right. But, those are the only teams I've coached. I've coached in high school and I coached a summer ball team that I was obligated to coach because no one else was doing it. I didn't want to do it, but I did it anyway for $500 from the Rockies. Thank you, Colorado.
Hey, yo,
best $500 you ever spent.
It's the only right $100 or $500 they've ever spent.
Right. But so like it's one that says like, I don't know how to describe or recommend travel ball organizations or people like who should I go play for? I'm like, I don't know. Go play for someone who will allow you to play the game and allow you to develop. Exactly. Right. Like and so who was I talking to recently? I was talking to a parent last night actually for not one of my kids, one of Jason's kids, but I've known this kid since he was in like an 8th grade. He's a senior in high school now, which starts making me feel old.
That's
right?
Wild, huh?
But this kid's a good, solid player. He's a lefty. He's upper 8s. I mean, he'll probably go D1 or a high D2, whatever he wants.
As hard as Maddux.
But, and I was talking to her about the whole training and, because the kid's been with us on and off again for the last 5 years. So they know what we do and we know what he does and what he's capable of. And he's big. And I was talking to his mom because she came to watch while we made a recruiting video. She just goes like, I can't tell you how much money we've spent on our son to pitch like one game out of a whole weekend. So that's why I'm always like kind of anti travel ball anyway. Cause I'm like, what are you really going to get out of it?
Right.
you're like, if you're just going to go pad stats, go somewhere, or pad your stats, go somewhere you're going to get a lot of innings.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to our main topic. But so this one's like, you have to, and this kind of builds, I guess, on our pet peeves podcast last week, was like, you have to be the one that wants it. You have to be the one that is going to put in that extra work, and like, oh, anytime, any opportunity I can to come to the facility or I can come to work out, I'm going to go take advantage of it. Right. We can't force you to do that. Like we'll work around time limitations. We'll work around work schedules, family events, school work. Well, we can work around those things, but it's like, if you're just not coming in, it's very difficult to, do anything or make those progress. I find a lot of kids kind of get jealous about, PBR right now. Like if you follow the PBR Colorado page, it's everyone, all these people getting promoted, all these people like, here's this kid, he's going to be a really good, he's got good rotation with fast hands and stuff like. But the big one's always this kid committed to this place, or this kid committed there, this kid committed here. And PBR is, I like what they do to an extent, but they really, really push the D1 guys. And
sex sells, baby.
Yeah, they sell the D1. Like they'll show the guys who committed to lesser level. They'll show them in the story, but they won't put them in the main feed, which I find very funny. But you have to understand that what those kids are. It's not those kids are just naturally good. I mean, they are to a certain extent, but I know some of those kids I've seen. I'm like, I know where he trains, and I know how often he trains.
Yep.
I know what this kid. I know he makes sure. Like how many workouts does that kid miss? I imagine it's very few. I imagine he takes full advantage of the sessions he books, or takes buys. Or buys, but he takes full advantage of his weight room sessions. He takes full advantage of his throwing sessions or his hitting sessions. Takes advantage of his recovery, whatever he does. Like those kids that you see that go to the schools that you want to go to are the kids who are taking care of those little things, right? That I can't control, unfortunately, as much as I would love to. Right. But, I can't put my hands I don't have tentacles like an octopus, and I can't put each hand into different buckets to take care of each individual athlete just because they don't want it.
Right. And when you're looking at it, it's one of those, I made a comment earlier, it's wanting a filet mignon on a top ramen budget. It's going through, and it's not wanting to put in the work when no one's watching, but expecting the results when everyone is. Like, you can't go through and do nothing when no one's watching, but expect for everything to go perfect when everyone is watching. Like you said, that kid probably doesn't miss a lot of sessions. That kid probably doesn't do this. There's so much more that goes on behind the doors for those kids that are committing to those big ass places. They do so much more that is not posted. But then you have kids that don't understand that aren't either at a training facility seeing guys like that putting in the work, where they don't have the Instagram out, or the Snapchat, or the fucking Be Real these days. Like, they don't have that out saying like, oh, look at me, I'm training right now. Like, they don't advertise.
Here's me doing my hybrid B day. I'm literally just here to long toss.
Exactly. Like,
and work and do some drill work.
They don't do that. But all of a sudden, when it's PR time, or his pull down time, or his commitment time, that's what gets posted. And so when you have an athlete that is never in the facility, and when they look on social media and they're like, oh, well, this kid throws 94. Oh, this kid's getting committed to this place. Oh, well, I just have to, play on a travel ball team, or play in the same organization that this kid played in. And then that means I'm going to get looked at by the same schools, or I just have to do this, or I just have to do that. It's like, there's so much more that the athlete that doesn't get those looks, so much more that the athlete needs to be doing behind doors when no one's watching, or when there's one instructor, two instructor. Like, that needs to happen more before you end up getting that commitment. And that's the piece that I would say is a little frustrating. But I mean, I get it. Like, PBR, they're not going to post guys not PRing. They're not going to post guys not committing. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. The last few posts I've seen from them, from their little like pro days they've been doing from schools.
Yeah.
I see some of those numbers. I'm just like, that's all that school's got.
Now, I would say there's a lot of schools that have done those, where I know like 1 to 4 hitters or pitchers that go to that school. They probably were just on like They were probably in Florida playing for some perfect game team or
Well, no, it's
stuff
not
like
even that big. Like they do like full blown like showcases now. I've seen there's some high schools in the area that done showcase with PBR. But I also imagine, like I talked to one kid who goes to one of the schools that got featured on one of those showcasing. Not Erie, it was Cherokee Trail. And he just goes like, yeah, that was like all like freshmen and sophomores and a couple of juniors.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so these are kids that aren't even going to get recruited in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, and it's what one of my kids I tell, he's my Bear Creek kid, where I'm just like, you've got to be able to kind of keep yourself in the news or keep yourself relevant, but you have to, it's the same thing. Like you have to give people a reason to keep you in the news or keep you relevant, right? No one's going to care like, okay, oh, this kid was 81 his sophomore year of high school. He could project very well. But if you're still 81 to 85 by the time you're a senior, then no one cares.
No one.
You're just gonna fall into the bucket of kids who wish they got to play college baseball who don't, or you don't get to that level that you wanted to, right? Because you didn't make progress, or you didn't make the strides to make you a person that's like, oh, I need to pay attention to this kid, right? That's like I just found out not too long ago. Like Bear Creek kid, he went to the whatever was that PBR thing. It was a double angel, and I forget what it was called. It was like that big. You know what I'm talking about, right? That
top
big,
state or some shit.
Yeah, top 40. It was the invite only thing, but like it was invite only if you could pay for it. You got to ask for an invitation, which I thought was bizarre.
They don't invite you. You ask to get an invite, and then they invite.
Exactly, and I remember like I remember looking at some of those stats. I'm like, that kid got an invite, but
they got to fail.
But he goes in there, he throws 86, 87, tops 88, shows off his good slider, shows off his good changeup, his curveball, and all that. And I remember he tells me, he's like, yeah, when I was done, I got told by like multiple coaches, like, where the hell have you been? And so that's
performance, baby.
Exactly, but that shows you like, you can go to all these showcases and all that, or you can waste all your money on these showcases, on these tournaments, on all these things. Like, but if you're not good, it doesn't matter, right? So that's where we go all the time. Is like, take advantage of what we do here. Take advantage of any other facilities in the state who do similar things to what we do and do them at a high level. If you want to be that guy, you want to be the dude, you want to make your varsity team, you want to be the number one pitcher, you want to be the 3-hole hitter, or the leadoff hitter, or whatever have you. I'm going to be the star center fielder. You have to put in the work to be that, to be deserving of that. Yeah. And I feel like there are too many guys, and I imagine this is not exclusively our problem. I know there are plenty of facilities like this where they, it's, give me a program, I'll do it to the lead, like I'll do it about as bare minimum effort into it, and I hope I get the results. Right? There's a for anybody who's been in the facility and listens to our other podcast, the Fast Performance podcast, usually hosted by Joel or JC, and Jason's on there periodically. A couple years ago, they had Gene Coleman on the Dr. Gene Coleman, I should say. Sorry,
shout out Rangers guy, right?
Yeah, Rangers guy, worked for a long,
good dude,
and was Nolan Ryan's, like a good collaborator, Nolan Ryan. But he had a good quote in the podcast where he's just like, you can't microwave success. Success is not a microwave. It's not a Hungry Man that you get from the freezer aisle in your grocery store. It's a slow
roast. And
exactly.
smoke,
it's like success is like barbecue. Good barbecue. It takes time. You got to smoke it. You got to roast it. You got to take care of it. Right.
We'll love TLC, baby.
I know. It's like, do you want your success to be that good? It was like you said, like you want that filet mignon, or do you want the dollar menu from McDonald's?
Yep.
Right. Both can be good, but
both can fix an appetite.
Both can fix an appetite, but what's going to last with you longer?
What's going to taste better? What's going to be sweeter when you dive into that thing? Is it going to be the filet mignon that's cooked medium rare, that's sizzling a little bit, little mashed potatoes on the side, little greens on the side, or is it the McDouble that you got a small fry with?
It's that like, if you're in a restaurant, it's like, what's the dish that's going to draw the most attention?
That little sizzle, baby.
Exactly. It's like if you're at Chili's, like no one cares about a burrito, but once you hear the Chili's from the fajitas, you're like, ooh, what's that?
What's going on?
And that's what you want to be. You want to be the fajita. You don't want to be the burrito at Chili's.
Yeah.
I know
it's fajita,
awful. This is an awful analogy, but
be the sizzling fajita that's coming by.
So from coach to coach, like how do we get kids out of that mindset, out of that filet mignon desire with the ramen noodle work ethic.
Yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, the big thing that I've been doing is just putting a mirror up to kids' faces.
Yeah.
Just being very honest, and that's a lot of the reason why I use so much data, is so that way the player is honestly able to look at it and say, like, this instructor isn't saying that I suck because I suck as a human. This instructor is saying I need to get better with XYZ. Like, it's very, like, I am not saying, like, me as Connor Reynolds saying that you're not a good hitter. The data is showing that you are very subpar in a lot of different categories out of other players that are similar to your skill, age, region. They're a lot better than you.
Right.
And so it's not saying me that you're not enough. It's saying that the data is saying you're not enough. And so when I'm able to go through and show kids that, generally there is a little back and forth at the beginning. I've actually had a player where I've been working with him for, it was probably like a year, going through. The kid had a lot of injuries. During COVID, they weren't able to play their season, and so a lot of stuff was messed up with them. But when it came time for them to try out, it was about, I want to say, early November, and I had sat the parent and the player down and had to have a straight, chat with them, and was like, hey, I don't think what we are doing right now is enough for your player to get to the point where they want to be. And I did not hear from that parent for 3 days, where they were pissed because they took it as me saying that their player isn't good.
Right.
And it took them a little bit of time. And once they came in, they went from coming in once a week, where we're working on just hitting, to then they came in twice a week for hitting. And then after one of those sessions, we would do a little infield. Once they did that, it wasn't until probably middle of January where the parent was like, thank you. Like, literally was like, thank you for being honest. Like, I know I was a little bit of much at first, and I was like, hey, I get it. Like, I understand the perspective that they have. It's just, I need them to know, like, this isn't me being personal. This is just me being honest. And this is one of the kids where they were.
And there's a difference between objective and subjective.
100%. And it sucked having to have that conversation, but that player has blossomed massively since then. I think the player's lost close to almost like 30 or 40 pounds, something like that. They're lifting every single day. They're coming in twice a week. Like, they're getting after it now. And it wasn't until I was able to tell them, like, hey, what we're doing is not enough. Now, this is an athlete that heard what I said and took advantage of it. I've also had other athletes where I've told them, like, hey, your shit don't stink. And they've said, all right, we're going to go somewhere else. And their shit still doesn't stink years later. And the instructor that they're with isn't having that awkward conversation or saying we need to change our goals or we need to change our roadmap. And so that athlete is going through thinking they're doing the things right, and they're not. Whereas for us, we're telling our athletes, like, hey, if this is your goal sheet, or if this is where you want to be, or this is what you want to do, this is what it's going to take. And I personally think it's up to the athlete. And that's why I say, again, I hold a mirror up to their face. If they blame me for holding the mirror, showing who they are as a true athlete, they're not a player I necessarily want to work with long term, because it's going to be my fault,
right?
Rather than them, again, looking in the mirror and saying, I didn't come in when I should have. I didn't, work out when I should have. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. And until that individual athlete is able to do that, I think that athlete is going to be capped at the junior varsity level if they're really athletic varsity.
I think there's an interesting, and this is something we've talked about before, is there is zero reason for high school athletes, and college athletes, and pro guys and everything like that. Like, there's zero reason for you to not know where you stand in this game now. It's so data driven that you can know what percentile of athletes your age or in your age range are.
Yep.
Right. I can pull up right now on my phone right here. Like, I have all TrackMan ranges that I have. So, like, if you want to be a college baseball player, you theoretically would need to be I would say like a top 25, top 10 percentile.
Yeah.
athlete. Like if you want to, let's say for example, like you want to be a Division 1 baseball player. What percentile of athletes go play Division 1 baseball?
I think it's 3%.
3%. So for you, if you want to be if you want to be sniffing Division 1 baseball, the top 10th percentile of fastball velocity in high school is 87 miles an hour. Right. So, are you putting in the work to get to that 87? If you want to be NAIA, junior college, Division 3, you maybe be top 50. You could be top 50% and get away with that. Top 50% is 80.4, according to TrackMan data, right? They spent, and then obviously those numbers increase as you go along. Like in college, the top 10th percentile in college is 92.5, right? And the MLB is 96.6, right? Top 25 at NCAA in college is 90.8, right? So there's all this information. You can know where you need to stand. So why aren't you working to get, like what you're saying is, what metrics do I need to improve? What am I going to do to improve those metrics? Right? If you don't have a roadmap, or even if you do have a roadmap, but you don't take advantage of the roadmap, how do you know you're getting better? How do you know? Because I feel there's too many guys who think there's such thing as like this just natural progression. It's just the older you get and the more games you play, like sure you'll be a little more savvy, but if you never play in a game where you see a guy who throws above 85, you're never going to hit 85.
Yep.
If you play against a team who only sees guys who throw 85 plus and you throw 80, unless you're really good, like you got your Greg Maddux type stuff, you're going to get your shit rocked all the time.
Well,
right.
There's an idea of if you are trying to get stronger in the weight room and you're squatting, if you are the sole person squatting 300 and everyone else is squatting below you, you're not going to grow as much as if you were squatting 300 and everyone else is squatting 500.
Right.
Like you're going to look around and go like, I'm not even close to where I need to be at, and you're going to fix it. But when you're the top dog, or if there's no pressure, like you said, if you've never seen it, then you're not going to know. Like you don't know what you don't know. And we're getting to a point where ignorance is not bliss, and especially when it's your own career. So for you to say, well, like, I just didn't know, that's, if you're a freshman, I get it. If you're a sophomore, okay. If you're a junior and you still don't know like what you need to be at or what you need to do to get better, high school programs don't keep juniors on their staff anymore. Like if you have no experience at the varsity level and you are not someone that's going to actually aid and embed the ability for that team to go further, they're going to take a sophomore or they're going to take a freshman that is equal to your ability, but to give them that experience sooner so that way they don't end up in the same boat as you. Right. And I've seen it happen many times. And then that's the same athlete that comes around and blames the coach. Like, oh, that coach didn't like me. And it's like, I don't know, man. You're a junior that's throwing and topping out at 74, 75. You like talking back to those PBR little showcases, was going through and I noticed a high school that I knew of, and it was hilarious because a freshman was the top velo guy, or no, I apologize. A sophomore was the top velo guy, and then a freshman was the next velo guy, and then a junior was the third velo guy. And this is also a program where I noticed there were a lot of names that I know at that school that were not on that list, that I know should be on that list. And so what that tells me is, one, the top dogs weren't there. Two, you're the oldest dude and you still ain't a top dog. Like there are freshmen and sophomore that are better than you. And unless you have the Maddux movement, they're not going to keep you. They have no reason to, unless your parent is a booster president or this or that. Now we're getting to daddy politics, which takes over high school programs like crazy.
Ruins more baseball programs than anything else.
Ruins it more than what, Cole?
What?
What did we say last
baseball
week?
Paul. Oh, what did I say last week? Oh, yeah. Took me a second there. Well, that's careers, not programs.
I mean, it kills programs, dog. That daddy ball shit. And that's what it comes into, is that the amount of parents I've seen where they will go in and do whatever they can to make it to where their kid is able to stay in the program because they know their kid is, like, I've seen more parents put in the time, energy, effort, and money to help with the booster program or the concession stand or this or that because they think that's the way they keep their kid on the program rather than investing the time, money, energy, and effort into the training side so that way the kid can actually earn the spot rather than, well, if we cut, Timmy, who's going to run the concession stand? Who's going to mow the grass? Who's going to do the scoreboard when we're playing games? Who's going to be our announcer? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? I've seen it. It happens.
Well, and that's what I would ask an athlete. I'm like, do you want to be that kid who makes the program because your dad or your mom or your dad has like a elevated level of importance within the program, or do you want to be there on your merit
because you're worth a shit
and you're worth a shit? Exactly. Like I knew a kid in high school who was like same way. Like we were coming in freshman, he was a catcher. He was a good athlete, but he wasn't a baseball player.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but he had always kind of like played for his mom and dad growing up, and it was kind of like funny. Like his mom was like his coach growing up, which I respect.
Was it Chad Powers?
No, it was not Chad Powers. but growing up, I mean, this kid actually has a pretty good life right now. Like he married his high school sweetheart. Actually, that's the third couple I think that people marry their high school sweethearts.
Is that really that good of a life?
I don't know. They seem very, very happy. Anyway, but I mean, he wasn't very good. But like, yeah, his freshman year, like his mom like goes up, he's like, oh, he just starts shadowing the booster club president, and we all kind of knew it. We're just like, he's not going to last in baseball much longer because he was also a football player. But it's like he's not going to last much longer in baseball because one, he's just not coordinated enough to do it. He doesn't have a good arm. He doesn't hit and all that. But like you kind of just see
great personality in the dugout.
Great personality. But but you could see like his mom kind of angling to be this elevated level of importance, right?
Oh yeah.
And as well as like, it's like I say, it's like, do you want to be here because you're a good player and you're going to contribute wins to me, or are you going to be here because your mom is your parents are of elevated level of importance that I kind of need them and I can't cut you because then we don't have anybody to fulfill that position.
And it almost seems like we're back again
like
talking
about what brings in more pride.
Oh yeah, but there's the thing though, is that I don't think if I'm a parent or if I'm a player that is in that situation, I don't think they are able to separate out the difference of pride in those two situations. Like, I don't think that they're sitting there going, I have no pride, but let me go do the booster club. Like, I honestly think that they are like, well, this is what I've got to do. Like, this is my job. This is my duty. This is how my kid plays. And that's the microwave success that we were just talking about. Like, that is the exact definition of, well, if my mom or if my dad or if my uncle or if this or if that goes and does blank, blank, or blank, then I'm now in that position. That's a microwave success.
Right.
And that's going to be something where I don't know if anybody has ever tried microwaving the same leftovers over and over and over and over again. It starts to taste rubbery. It starts to taste like shit. And so if you have to microwave your success year after year after year after year, it isn't going to work for a fifth time. It's going to taste like dog shit because it is dog shit.
I'll caveat this and say, like, not every kid whose parents are in the booster club are bad. Like my kid over at Bear Creek, his mom is now the former because now he's a senior, so she's not going to be the president anymore. But like she's the president of the booster club, but he also has merit to the position and the things he's done. He finished second in 5A in strikeouts. He, had 6 wins. He was the hoss of our team. He got first team all conference. It wasn't because his mom was the booster club president. It was because he's fucking good.
Hey, and shit. My dad was a booster club president,
right?
And my mom ran concessions.
Yeah, my mom ran a concession stand.
But here's the thing, though, is that I'm sure there were lots of other families that looked in at that and were like, well, the only reason Connor's playing is because of blank, and I don't know. I'm not able to speak and say, yeah, that was, or no, that wasn't. But I would say the resume that like Cole or your player was able to build. I mean, I had a decent resume to back it up too. And it's not every single kid, but it's the chicken and the egg. Like, what comes first? Is it the fact that your kid's good, and that's why your parent wants to put in time, energy, and effort in the program because they want to make sure that their player that is up to par is surrounded in a program that is actually worth the shit? Or does your kid suck, and then you go, ooh, I need to do blank, blank, and blank to keep them around?
So something I would say, I mean, kind of moving on to to another kind of subsection of this, is for players who get jealous of the player who gets more playing time with you. Like, and don't get me wrong, there could always be politics involved. There was a shit ton of politics when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Douglas County politics in the year from 2008 to 2012 was a swamp. Like, we could say like our former president, like we had to drain the swamp. We had a massive swamp in the Douglas County program that needed to get drained. They didn't get drained until 2 years after I left. I was like, well, that's inconvenient, but like. I would tell a kid, like, this kid plays because he gets preferential treatment or whatever. I'm like, does he get preferential treatment or is he just good?
Yeah.
Right? Did he put in the work?
What
So
came
that's
first?
what I would tell. I would tell guys, I'm like, be so good that preferential treatment becomes nil and void. You become so good that the coaches who would otherwise utilize daddy ball to play their own kids, like, they no longer have they can't justify not playing you.
100%.
Right? And I would even say that from a standpoint of, like, I like high school baseball, but it's one of those things, like, once you only think the highest level is the level that you're at.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, when you're in high school baseball is awesome. Then you get to college baseball, and high school baseball is absolutely, it's just like, okay, high school baseball is worthless, and not saying it's worthless, but it's just like, okay, I'm at a higher level.
Well, it's comparisons.
It's comparisons, and I'm playing better competition, but it's just like, when I played college baseball, I no longer missed high school baseball. When I did when guys who've done pro stuff, I was like, I don't miss college baseball, but I wouldn't replace it with what I do now.
Exactly.
Right. So everything's always elevated, but so it's like, once I like get so good that preferential treatment it gets harder for preferential treatment to subsist to get in your situation. And then, most coaches will go like, okay, why didn't that kid play?
Yep.
But that's something Jason and I notice all the time with college guys who come in here. We get a lot of college guys who come in that didn't get any innings, didn't pitch for their high school teams because of preferential treatment, but they're good players. There are a lot of really good players in this state who don't play as much as they should.
Oh, yeah.
Because of politics, because of daddy ball, because you didn't play for this fall ball team that I wanted you to play for, and all that. Like I said, there's a lot of bullshit.
You didn't come to our showcase that we put together.
Right. It's like there's a lot of bullshit that happens in the state, but that's why I said, just put in the work and get good enough that all that preferential, all that animosity against you doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't matter, or it becomes very, like, ill-advised or just unwarranted.
And I mean, I've had this,
like, unless you're an asshole, unless
right.
your kid's an asshole. But.
I mean, I've had the same conversation with kids where if the coach doesn't like the player's swing or doesn't like me as an instructor or this or that, I tell them, like, hey, doubles in the gap play.
Yeah.
Like, they could hate your swing, they could hate me, they could hate you as a person, or whatever it is. Doubles in the gaps play. And so if you just keep balling out, it's really hard for them to say anything else. And I don't know, it's one of those where it's just the microwave success thing. It's a perfect analogy. It really is, because I mean, downstairs, 30 seconds, you click one button, brrr, boom, it's done, and it's like, oh, that was super easy, that was nice. Now if like today, Cole, you had chicken and rice for dinner.
Like I have every day.
Yeah, baby. Now you're able to take that chicken.
I save money for my filet mignons one day.
I love it, baby.
I live on a Costco chicken and rice diet, so I can have the filet mignons later.
Hey, you can't complain, dog. Everyone's got a plan. And you go through, you take that chicken, you throw it in the microwave, boom, done. It's in 30 seconds. Now, what people don't realize is if you wanted to make that chicken from scratch, you're going to have to go out to the back, you're going to have to kill that chicken, you're going to have to come back, you're going to have to pluck it, you're going to have to go through, you're going to have to defeather it or whatever. You're going to have to do all your stuff. You have to season it, you have to roast it, you have to cook it, you have to chop it up. Like, there's so much more that goes into it versus the chink. Done.
Exactly. I mean, when I get that chicken, the 3/4 of the work's already done.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
So I mean, more plugs for guys for nutrition advice. Go get those rotisserie chickens at Costco.
They're so good.
$5 per bird. You just break it all up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I buy 3 of them at a time, $15. It makes me a week's worth of meals. That's like 3 meals a day.
Hey, you can't complain with that.
That's 7 ounces per serving. So I'm like, go do that.
It's so good. The chicken skin of it too.
Shout out Costco.
Really well seasoned.
No free ads, but Costco can.
Costco, you get it with that rotisserie chicken, right?
Oh,
Yeah, you keep that hot dog at the same price too. Ooh,
oh, the hot dog and a soft drink.
oh, so good. While you're walking around, getting little free mini samples
all the
too.
samples, baby.
Golly,
Go get the pizzas. Pizzas are good too.
And that shit.
They're not the best.
fat.
They're not the best pizzas, but I will say they are loaded with calories. So if you guys need to get on some bulking phases, put on another extra 20 pounds. Costco pizza,
Less than $2.
Cheese. Just get the whole pizza for like $10.
Oh yeah,
$10. And the cheese pizza is 4,000 calories.
you can call.
You'll put on some goddamn weight.
You can call ahead with Costco too.
Oh yeah.
You call ahead, let them know, hey, I want a cheese pie made. And you show up, pay your $10, and you got cheese pie, baby.
So our indication is, as we've gotten into Costco talk, this segment is officially over.
The board meter is flashing like crazy.
So awesome. Yeah. So once again, like it's your career. Do with it what you will. But if your goals and your training is not aligning with your goals, you need to make some adjustments. Look in the mirror. Remember, you can't microwave success. Closing out this episode of the Fast Performance Baseball Podcast, Connor, here you have a HitTrax League to plug.
Yes, sir. So here at Fast Performance, we're going to be doing a HitTrax tournament that's going to be on October 30th. That's going to be a Halloween tournament. We're going to be going through, it's going to be teams of 3 innings, machine pitch. Going to be going through, there's going to be prizes for best costumes, going to be prizes for highest exit velo, prize for this distance, and then the winners of this HitTrax tournament get a free automatic bid into the HitTrax League that's going to be lasting 6 weeks after. It's going to be 7-inning games for that. Each game takes roughly about 30 minutes, and on a team of 3 for 7 innings, if you get out every single at-bat, you're going to get 21 at-bats. And again, it is a double-header. So now you're getting 42 at-bats minimally off of machine using HitTrax. If you have a Blast Motion account, your Blast Motion will be there. Everything will be live streamed, so that way you can go back right away, screen record if you hit an absolute nuke. Attach that to your college recruiting video if you have a field level, Twitter, or whatever it is. Again, we're going to be doing that. The tournament is October 30th. The league will be running through November 4th all the way through December 18th. You can go through. You can register at fastcolorado.com. If you go to the hitting tab, register. Teams of 3. We're doing an early bird special sign up right now for the league, so check that out.
How much is the league?
The league for an individual is going to be, I believe it is $250 for the early bird. If you sign up with a full team, it's only $500. And then if you already come in and work here with myself, you're going to get a discount. Whether if you come in once a week, you get 15% off. If you come in twice a week, you get 25% off.
So it feels like for $250 per individual, when you get 42 at bats a day,
times
minimally
6. Which is going to be close to, what is that, 250 something at bats, 260 at bats over a 6-week span.
And he paid how much for fall ball?
Exactly. And I was going through and I looked at, there was another company that does showcases that for one day for a live BP round, it was 300.
Yeah.
So that's I think the HitTrax League sounds like a really good deal.
Sounds like a steal, if you ask me.
A steal, they said.
On the pitching side, we're just doing our, regular thing, getting kids working on our velo stuff. Everyone's kind of starting to get into their pull downs, their plyo velo sessions. They're, right now is the time to just learn how to throw hard. All right. Everyone always wants an extra 5-10 miles an hour on their fastball velocity, and now is the time of year to start doing that. Nothing special in the facility at all, really. We got TSAC this week, which has been fun.
It's been having a lot of people in here.
A lot of people working with Joel and JC.
Strider's been having an absolute blast.
Oh yeah.
There's new people to smell.
So all right. Where, Connor, can all the good people listening on YouTube, watching us on YouTube, listening on all our streaming platforms, where can they find you on social media?
The good people, the bad people, and everybody in between can go find me at fast_RBI, whether that's Twitch, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, whatever it might be. Fast_RBI is where you can find me. And then Cole, where am I? The good, bad, and everybody in between people find you?
Well, everybody can find me on Twitter at cthomas624, on Instagram at ColeThomasFast. Follow Fast Baseball at Fast Baseball on TikTok and on Instagram, and you can follow Fast Performance at Fast Performance CEO on Instagram, on Facebook, on anywhere you can find anybody. Awesome. We really appreciate you guys listening to us this week. It was a great show. We hope you all really enjoyed it. We appreciate you. From me and Connor, we really appreciate you.